So Highland Noise Podcast. I'm Shane.
I'm Glory.
And we're here with...
And I'm Johnny from Greyhaven.
There are some questions there about the upcoming album. Keep It Quiet. So congrats on that, by the way. How do you guys feel about the response to the announcement so far?
Things have been great, stoked. Seems like everyone's digging the new songs, which is all you can really ask for. And we're stoked about it. So just hope that keeps going.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got to jam the record ahead of the interview, and it fucking rips. We've been following along with you guys for a minute, and this is the best work I've heard from you guys. It absolutely rips.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Hell yeah.
Great. So is there any meaning behind the album title or cover art?
The album title comes from just the first song on the record. It's kind of one of the first lines said on the whole album. And I wouldn't say there's a full meaning to it. It just was a line that we felt connected with everything that tends to follow. And I think there's a lot of like play in how you want to take that term, even as playful as the album being a metal record and, calling it, keep it quiet. So there's the playful aspect, but I think the big part is it seemed to kind of really match the theme in a lot of the songs, and just felt right when it kind of popped up. And then the album art, I don't want to get too deep into that because I'd rather leave that up for interpretation from fans, but there's songs even just like Cemetery Sun, they're even some of the titles kind of reference what's going on in that, but definitely a lot of thought and work went into building that. We had a photographer shoot it for us, but we were present and kind of built the whole scene ourselves. So a lot went into it, but I would rather kind of let people make their own meaning from it.
That's fair enough. So can you tell us a little bit about the writing process for the album?
We had released an EP last year, and that was originally meant to be an album. And, time constraints kind of led it to being like, let's cut it down to an EP so we can work with Will Putney again, who's our preferred producer.
Hell yeah.
And it was our first release through Solid State, so it just kind of felt right. So there's not too much on this record that was from that writing period, but it kind of all began in that moment. One of the tracks on here was for certain brought up into when we were going to do the EP, and we decided that felt like it needed to be saved for the record. And a lot of riffs and stuff had kind of already started to be written by that time. And then we toured very extensively after the release of that EP. So it was kind of any window that we had when we were home was kind of us all just getting together and seeing what we can pull out, and then bringing it up to the studio and rehashing it all, tearing it all apart and rebuilding it up.
Absolutely. Did you guys struggle at all with the consistent alternating headspace of being on the road and then using the small times at home to kind of write and flip-flopping between those two headspaces?
Oh, without a doubt. Definitely put a lot of stress on us before we went up. It kind of started, you feel like you have a lot, and then when you lay it out, you're like, oh my god,
we're gonna have to
we
write
don't
more.
want to also go up and we don't want to go up there with just the songs that made the record. I think we went in with like 16 or 17. We want to overwrite and then pull it back, and maybe these songs are too similar in feeling and we don't want to do that, or we felt we were stoked on that, and then you get it there and you're like, no, that is the weakest of the batch. And so we try to overwrite. So when it was kind of getting down to a couple months out, it was quite stressful, because you're doing all that work on the road and then you get home and you almost want to rest, and there was just no time for that. We even recorded the record in the midst of being on the road. We recorded like half of it, and then we flew to England and did a tour. And then flew right back into the studio to finish recording it. So it was quite stressful, but I like to think that we all work quite well under stress. And if anything, that's when like the big moments come out, or, right, that chorus came from everyone being stressed, what hopefully can feel iconic, or at least to us, like that's the moment on the album. They always tend to come from those like super stressful moments instead.
Diamonds make or fucking pressure makes diamonds. Jesus Christ, how did I get that? Fucking bad. That's embarrassing. Anyways, so what song off the album took the longest to write, and which one is your personal favorite?
Oh, longest to write. I would say the song, speaking of diamonds, Diamond to Diamond,
Mhm.
All right.
was the song we kind of had. I think it was probably one of the earliest we even had for the EP.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, didn't use it at that time and kind of kept rehashing it.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't call it a simple song, but it is more laid back in a lot of ways. And I think we can struggle sometimes to want to do too much. And, sometimes that simplicity feels like maybe we're bad songwriters, so we got to up the ante. And
Yeah.
so I think that one kind of, both in the amount of time from writing to release and the amount of times I think we kind of rehashed at things, maybe because we were feeling like, oh, well, we're just kind of doing this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But then, you look at some of our favorite bands, like Radiohead,
Mm-hmm.
some of those songs are just one part over and over and over. And you
Mm-hmm.
recognize that song is brilliant. So how can we tell ourselves to kind of pull back? So I think that was just one of the ones that, yeah, took a long time in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then my personal favorite on the record, I think, is a song called Night in October.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably be the only out of the band that feels that way, but that's okay. I think it's
Oh,
good that everyone has their own.
exactly.
Um, that one, I don't know why. It's just every moment of it is a song I always wanted to make, and I'm really proud of that. But if I spoke for everyone, I would say collectively, I think we're all super excited about the first track on the record.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of feels like a different realm for us, something that I think we all are just like extremely excited about. So that
Very
that way
special.
everyone else gets a bit of a word
All
in.
right.
Yeah,
Hell
there you
yeah.
go.
There we
Yeah.
go. So how did the track list for your album come about? Did you guys write the opener be the opener, closer be a closer, shuffle around and see what fits? What was that process like?
No, it's funny how you kind of like post writing a song, you'll hear it and it'll be like, man, that has to be this.
Mm-hmm.
And the intro track, which now feels like that's the only way it could be, was definitely pitched more as like an interlude at one point before it, was built into the song that it is. Cemetery Sun had never been my choice as the last song, until we were in the studio and things kind of changed and the ending kind of turned into what it became. And once it did, it was just one of those immediate, like, oh, I would have never guessed that was the ending, but like that has to be the last song now. Past that, I think the rest of the guys are pretty great about letting me kind of take the reins. I'm super into vinyl records and album art and layouts and track listings. Like, I think track listing is so important. And, there's track 2 is sometimes has to be this one, sometimes this song just works so well in the middle and it wouldn't work well at the beginning or end. And I think I feel the strongest about that. And they're, pretty good about me kind of playing with it and sending it over and saying, what do you all feel about this? This feels really right. Like, this song perfectly flows into this. And at times I felt that enough in advance to almost us be in the studio and be like, this song has to flow into this. So let's kind of create a bridging gap on how that they would flow into each other. So I try to have foresight into it a bit if I can.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Gotcha. So would you be able to tell us where your headspace is at while you're creating the record?
Oh, I don't think there's any real headspace to anyone. I think we're all just wanting to make more songs together, and pushing what we've already done. No, we all kind of catch, like, oh, this kind of feels like a song we've already done, or that transition, or we've kind of done that before. Like, I think everyone, the one headspace we all have is wanting to make something that we're super proud of, but it also feels new. I would hate for anyone to be like, oh, this record, it just reminds me so much of the last one. We're not, that's not fun. That's not fun as a listener. Like, even like my favorite record, if like a band just made that again, It would almost take away from what made me love the one before so much. And sometimes it takes time to come around to a record. If a band changes their sound a bit or, pushes some boundaries, it may not click the first few times. So I think we're always trying to do that. And I don't think it's so drastic. We didn't make a full genre change shift, but I like to think that, these songs feel completely separate from the last releases.
Gotcha.
Hell yeah.
So how do you recommend your fans to listen to this album for the first time? Should do in the car with friends, in dark with headphones on? Is workout album, party album? What do you personally recommend?
I'm a big, on your own, headphones in, whichever way you want to do that. I think when you're with people, you get to talking, you're not as involved. Again, that's why I love vinyl is, I'm big on putting the record on, having the lyrics out, having all the artwork kind of laid out and taking a record in. That always feels the best to me. But then again, I think some records, first time I've heard them was in the car with the windows down with friends, and there's something iconic about that. I've the Wonder Years' Greatest Generation album, which I adore. I'll never forget hearing that with friends with the windows down the first time driving, in the car, and so that memory is connected very much. So maybe that's what works for people with this, but I'm still pretty heavy on the alone vinyl listen.
Hell yeah. And if they have the vinyl, they can look at the artwork that's open to interpretation, nice and big, versus looking at it on Spotify, the little tiny window.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hell yeah. And this one should be super, super quick off top of your head. I want you to describe this album for new listeners in 3 words. No more, no less.
Emotional, experimental, maybe. And fun. I hope. And now I'm speaking too much, but I do hope people have fun with it.
There you go. You're allowed to explain it. It's okay.
He's had to embellish. It's fine. Yeah.
And in that same train of thought, is there a certain feeling or emotion you want listeners to have while going through the album?
Again, it feels like a quite emotional record to me, but that's should hopefully be all music. I know Brent was less cryptic on this, and that was kind of a heavy thing for him to, when you hear these lines, hopefully they kind of explain themselves a lot of times. And so I hope people pick up on that emotion. And again, we try to craft something that feels like a ride. I think the last track, Cemetery Sun, is quite fun for a lot of it, and so there's some in the middle that, maybe can evoke a person, emotionally in a way to cry or that. So as all of my favorite albums have their ups and downs, I do hope people kind of feel that wave too of enjoyment. But, if you can dive yourself deep enough to hopefully let those emotions, make their way to the listener as well.
Hell yeah. I'm curious, and I know you brought it up, but I know you're not Brent, so if you can't answer it, it's okay. You mentioned the lyrics a little bit more on the nose, a little less cryptic. Was that an intentional choice, or did that just kind of happen during the writing process and kind of evolve? And like I said, if you don't have the answer, that's perfectly okay.
No, I'm pretty sure it was quite purposeful. He tends to be quite cryptic. Which I like that. Again, same with the album art, you kind of leave it up to the listener. And he still did plenty of that on this. It's definitely part of his writing, but I was personally with him for a decent little chunk of writing and helping craft vocals and such. And so it was interesting, me personally, watching how ideas come out, because he tends to kind of write melody first a lot. And then kind of apply past that. So I know he was quite adamant about being less cryptic and a little more on the nose, which is harder because you're more open. You can hide behind those cryptic words, but when you say a line that's not, it's a little bit more obvious to a listener of, oh, this is what he means by this. And is whether it's angry, sad, happy, or what, that's his heart's definitely more on the table when he's being that open. So I do believe it was very on purpose.
Gotcha. All right.
That's right. And would you be able to touch on any particularly challenging or standout moments during the creation of the album, positive or negative?
I do know, again, coming in with a lot of songs, it's challenging to see ones you love cut. There was definitely one that I know got cut that I was very excited about exploring. That, if I'm not mistaken, that was one I was like, that's the end of the record for sure, and then it's gone. And it's definitely always difficult to sit there and kind of tear your babies apart. But again, we've worked with Will on almost every release, and we're quite comfortable with him. And when he has ideas, we have a lot of faith in that. We definitely gave pushback. We have a single coming out on Friday, and I know he wanted that cut, and now it is a single. So take that. But again, I think he has faith in what we're doing, and we have faith in his opinions and his craft. So I think one of the hardest parts is always like going in and everyone accepting like, this riff I wrote is no longer going to be that riff I wrote. It is a different like version of itself, or that song that I just thought had to make the record, just it maybe won't, and maybe that's a good thing. So I think that's always one of the most challenging parts of crafting it.
That makes sense. So for this question, I want you to picture you're on tour, you're at a gas station for a rest stop. What is your snack of choice?
I think a few of us are all pretty bad about like a bag of chips and a Slim Jim.
Yeah, classics. Yeah.
That's kind of, I feel like a pretty heavy duo across the board. So I'll stick with that. No, any chip. Mine's probably Doritos, but I think everyone is the combo.
All right.
Perfect. And on the topic of food, if the band was a dish, what dish would the band be and why?
Man, I wish I was prepped for that one, so I could think on it a bit.
It's a hard hitter.
Yeah. I want to say ramen just because that's my favorite food. So that'll just be my choice, and everyone's gonna have to live with it.
You're the one taking the interview,
Exactly.
And for the last couple of questions, going to shift completely away from music and go straight to death row.
Boom.
So if you're on death row, what would your last meal be with a drink?
We're sticking with ramen on that. And if it's my last one, I gotta have me a nice beer, a big like hefty stout. That's how I'm going out.
Hell yeah.
Damn straight. And if you could live in one fictional world for a week, where would you live?
Oh, Middle Earth.
Oh, fuck yeah, that'd be easy.
Without a doubt.
All right.
Lord of the Rings, all the way.
Hell yeah.
And I've never asked the last question. Every single person we've spoken to have said that is the most important question. What is your favorite color?
I'm a green man. If you can't see from my walls right behind,
I can tell. And we typically follow up with specific shade of green. Does it happen to be dark green?
Forest, even.
No, actually, I like a good like emerald.
Ooh,
yeah, that didn't feel as good for a shade in my office, but
a bit loud.
Yeah, a bit loud, but just about any green is good by me.
All right.
Perfect.
So as I said, that's all the questions we have today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
Gonna plug the album again. I appreciate your all's kind words on it. It is definitely, without a doubt, the piece of music we're most proud of, as you hope it always is with a new record. And yeah, we're all just so proud and confident in this. It just is like our favorite thing we've ever gotten to do. So we're about to tour off of it for a month and a half in Europe, and then we'll get home and do our first big US headliner off of it, playing a bunch of the songs, and our longest set to date. So come to one of those shows, buy the record, check it out.
Hell yeah.
That's what we got.
All right. Well, thank you for listening. It's been Johnny from Greyhaven, and we have been the Good Noise Podcast.